One morning, the ship was passing very close to a small island. As I was admiring the serenity of this far-off place, a ruckus occurred. On the island, a man came running out from the thickness of the brush. His hair was down to his waist, and his beard was almost the same. His clothes were tattered straps, barely covering his beet-red skin. He was frantically waving his arms around as he jumped up and down, and he seemed to be yelling something. The captain of the ship happened to be on a morning stroll around the deck, so I grabbed his attention and brought him to my spot on the rail. "Captain, there, on that island. There's a man over there. What do you think he's yelling?" I asked. "Oh, don't mind him," the captain replied. "He does this every 3 months when we pass by." A man was driving along the road when suddenly a Ferrari whizzed past him and the driver inside yelled, "Ever driven a Ferrari, mate?" This angered the man, and he accelerated to catch up to the Ferrari and give the driver a piece of his mind. However, as he was about to reach the Ferrari, it accelerated, and the man just managed to catch the driver yell, "Ever driven a Ferrari, mate?" before the Ferrari left him in the dust. Recognizing that he was not able to match the Ferrari's speed, the man calmed down and resumed driving at normal speed. A few miles ahead, however, the man noticed the Ferrari upturned in a ditch. Curious about what might have happened, the man stopped his car and went to check out the crash scene. Inside the upturned Ferrari, a weak and shaky voice came out. "Ever driven a Ferrari, mate? Know where the brake is?" A man absolutely hated his wife's cat and decided to get rid of him one day by driving him 20 blocks from his home and leaving him at the park. As he was getting home, the cat was walking up the driveway. The next day, he decided to drive the cat 40 blocks away. He put the beast out and headed home. When he reached his driveway, there was the cat. He kept taking the cat further and further, but the cat would always beat him home. One day, he decided to drive hundreds of miles away. He drove out of town through the desert and into the next state until he reached what he thought was a safe distance from his home. He let the cat out and headed back. Hours later, the man calls home to his wife. "Jen, is the cat there?" "Yes," the wife answers. "Why do you ask?" "Put him on the phone," the man replies. "I'm lost and need directions." When I was learning to drive in the winter, my dad told me, "If you're ever lost in the snow, wait for a plow truck, then follow it." One cold, snowy Minnesota night, I got lost on the way home. The snow was blowing so fast and piling up so high, I couldn't see any street signs. With no map in my car and a dead cell phone, I thought I might be stranded, so I pulled over to the side of the road. Then, breaking through the flurries, I saw the headlights of a plow truck in my rearview mirror. Thanking my lucky stars, I turned in and followed the truck, hopeful that it would lead me back somewhere I recognized. I followed that truck for what felt like hours. He turned left, I'd turn left. He'd swing to the right, and I was right on his tail. After a while, I saw brake lights from the plow, followed by 4-way flashers. The plow had stopped, and I saw the driver get out and approach my car. I rolled down the window to talk to him. "Why are you following me, kid?" the plow driver asked. "Well, sir, my dad told me if I was ever lost in a snowstorm, I should wait for a plow truck and then follow it." "Well," said the plow driver, "I just finished clearing the Target parking lot. Want to follow me over to Best Buy?" The day after a man lost his wife in a scuba diving accident, he was greeted by 2 grim-faced policemen at his door. "We're sorry to call on you at this hour, Mr. Wilkins, but we have some information about your wife." "Well, tell me," the man said. The policeman said, "We have some bad news, some good news, and some really great news. Which do you want to hear first?" Fearing the worst, Mr. Wilkins said, "Give me the bad news first." So the policeman said, "I'm sorry to tell you, sir, but this morning we found your wife's body in San Francisco Bay." "Oh my God," said Mr. Wilkins, overcome by emotion. Then, remembering what the policeman had said, he asked, "What's the good news?" "Well," said the policeman, "when we pulled her up, she had 2 5-pound lobsters and a dozen good-sized Dungeness crabs on her." "If that's the good news, then what's the great news?" Mr. Wilkins demanded. The policeman said, "We're going to pull her up again tomorrow morning." Kevin had just gotten a new car and was out for a drive when he accidentally cut off a truck driver. Truck driver motioned for Kevin to pull over. When Kevin did, The driver got out of his truck and pulled a piece of chalk from his pocket. He drew a circle on the side of the road and gruffly commanded to Kevin, "Stand in that circle and don't move!" He then went to Kevin's car and cut up its leather seats. When he turned around, Kevin had a slight grin on his face, so the driver said, "Oh, you think that's funny? Watch this." He gets a bat out of his truck and breaks every window in Kevin's car. When he turns and looks at Kevin, he has a smile on his face. The driver is getting really mad. He gets his knife back out and slices all its tires. Now, Kevin is laughing. The truck driver is really starting to lose it. He goes back to his truck and gets a can of petrol, pours it on Kevin's car, and sets it on fire. He turns around, and Kevin is laughing so hard he is about to fall down. "What's so funny?" the truck driver asked. Kevin replied, "Every time you weren't looking, I stepped outside the circle." A man is at the checkout line of a supermarket when he realizes he forgot to buy condoms. When his turn arrives, he looks at the cashier and asks, "I'm sorry, I forgot to buy condoms. Can you ask someone to bring me a packet?" "That's fine," she tells him. "What size do you need?" He's not sure, so the pharmacist asks him to drop his pants, has a little feel around that area, and then speaks into the microphone. "Packet of medium condoms to cashier 4, please." The person behind him is a jock, and whilst he doesn't need condoms, he's curious as to how he shapes up. So when it's his turn, he says the same thing. "I'm sorry, I forgot to buy condoms. Can you ask someone to bring me a packet?" Just as before, she asks him to drop his pants, has a feel around, then speaks into the microphone. "Packet of extra-large condoms to cashier 4, please." The next person in the queue is the ugliest person you can imagine, and he's quite interested in the whole thing. When he arrives, he goes, "I also forgot to buy condoms. I don't know my size," and pulls his pants down. The cashier has a little feel around that area, then speaks into the microphone. "Mop and bucket to cashier 4, please." A man walks into a supermarket. Unfortunately, his zipper is down. A young female cashier approached the man and said to him, "Your barracks door is open." Not a phrase that men usually use, so the man went about his business in the store, slightly confused. As he was almost done with his shopping, another man came up to him and said, "Hey, buddy, your fly is open." The man promptly zipped his pants up, thanked the man, and went to finish up his shopping. When it was time to check out, he made sure to get into the line where the young lady was who'd originally spoken to him. Planning on having a bit of fun with her, when it was his turn to check out, he asked her, "When you saw that my barracks door was open, did you happen to see a soldier standing at attention?" The young lady thought for a moment and told the man, No, sir, I did not. I did, however, see a disabled veteran sitting on a couple of old duffel bags." A young man gets a job at the local grocery store. His job is to bag the customer's groceries at checkout. It's mindless work, but he does not complain and performs his job well. After working in the store for a couple of months, the store's produce section gets a juicing machine. Customers bring their selections of fruits and vegetables to the machine, and an attendant juices the produce for them, making the freshest of juices. The young man, wanting to move beyond bagging groceries, asks the manager if he can have the job of juice machine attendant. The manager denies his request. The young man is upset but figures that he will continue to prove his worth bagging groceries, and eventually he will get the juicing job. Another few months pass, and the young man approaches his manager again. "Ma'am, I would like to request the job of juice machine attendant." Sadly, the manager denies his request once again. "I don't understand," the young man says. "I'm professional, I'm reliable, and I'm great with the customers. I work hard and I deserve that position. I'm tired of bagging groceries." The manager sighs and says, "You're a wonderful worker, that's true, but I simply cannot give you the job. You know what they say, beggars can't be juicers." A man walks into a grocery store. After getting all his groceries, he sees something interesting at the checkout counter. Not knowing what it is, he asks a worker. The worker replies, "Why, that's a thermos. It keeps your hot stuff hot and your cold stuff cold." Intrigued, the man decides to buy it. He picks out a lovely blue one and plops it down on the checkout conveyor belt. The worker assured him that he will like his purchase, and the man agrees. After all, he often has hot stuff he would like to keep hot and cold stuff he would like to stay cold. Who doesn't? The man promptly leaves the grocery store. and the worker forgets all about the experience. He knew it was a great thermos and was sure the man would enjoy it. However, a few days later, the same man storms in. He looks extremely angry and demands to see the worker who sold him the thermos. Upon seeing the worker, the man opens his thermos and flings its contents at him. The worker, now sticky and covered with popsicle sticks, is very confused. He asks the man, "What is this about? Why did you do that?" The man replies, "You lied about the thermos. It doesn't work at all." The worker, knowing that the thermos does work and is extremely high quality, asks, "What do you mean? How did it not work?" The man replies, "Well, you said that it keeps the hot stuff hot and the cold stuff cold, right? Well, then explain to me why when I got to work, my coffee was lukewarm and my ice cream bars were gone." A woman goes to pharmacy, and when she is done getting her items, the cashier asks if she wants to get a free COVID shot, but the woman says, "God will protect me from COVID." When the woman gets home, she gets a call from her doctor saying, "You're qualified to come today to get your COVID shot." But the woman says, "God will protect me from COVID." While walking around her neighborhood, she is less than 6 feet away from a homeless guy who coughs and sneezes on her. An ambulance is nearby and says, "We'll take you to the hospital to get your COVID shot for free." But she says, "God will protect me from COVID." A week later, she starts feeling ill and gets a COVID test required by her workplace and tests positive for COVID. The woman then gets horrible symptoms and goes to the hospital's emergency room, and her doctor asks why she didn't get her COVID shot and says, "God will protect me from COVID." She then dies from COVID and sees God. She then asks God, why didn't he protect her from COVID? God says, "I gave you many opportunities to get your COVID shot from the pharmacy, a phone call from your doctor, and the ambulance nearby." A pregnant woman enters the delivery room with her husband. The doctor tells them that a new scientific breakthrough has been achieved, a way to transfer pain felt from one person to another. "This way, you can share the pain between the two of you if you wish." The husband and wife agree. "Great," says the doctor. "Considering men don't come close to experiencing childbirth, we'll start low and work our way up. Let's open up with 10%. The husband says he's fine and they can increase the load. The doctor complies and increases it to 20%. Still, the husband claims he's feeling fine. So the load goes up to 30%, then 40%, 50%. It keeps going until the husband is taking 90% of the pain. The doctor commends the husband for being able to sustain such a great deal of pain. A few days later, they arrive home, seeing the mailman dead on their front porch. There is this large group of penguins living their peaceful penguin lives. One day, a ship crashes and sinks nearby. A polar bear swims to the ice from the sinking ship and quickly falls asleep, obviously exhausted from his ordeal. The penguins, having never seen a polar bear, think nothing of it and go about their daily routines. When the polar bear wakes up, he is hungry and starts eating penguins. This, as you would expect, causes concern amongst the colony. After a few days of this carnage, the penguins have a meeting. Their leader says, "We need to cut a big hole in the ice where there is no water beneath it." For penguins, this was a difficult task, but they trusted in their leader. It took a while, but they cut the large hole. "Now we need to gather a bunch of fish and put it around the hole." The penguins were not happy to be catching fish for them not to eat, but they completed the task. "What was the purpose of this?" asked one penguin. "He will eat the fish, then eat all of us." The leader says, "When the bear is eating the fish, he will be bent way over next to the edge of the void we created. We will simply walk up behind him and kick him right in the ice hole." Sorry for the bad pun, but my kids enjoyed this when I told them. The 6th grade science teacher, Mrs. Parks, asked her class, "Which human body part increases to 10 times its size when stimulated?" The room went silent. No one answered. Suddenly, little Mary stood up and shouted, "You shouldn't be asking 6th graders a question like that. I'm going to tell my parents, and they'll tell the principal, and you'll get fired." Mrs. Parks ignored her outburst and calmly repeated the question. "Which body part increases to 10 times its size when stimulated?" Mary huffed and whispered loudly to her classmates, "Oh, she's so getting in trouble." Finally, Billy stood up, looked around nervously, and said, The body part that increases to 10 times its size when stimulated is the pupil of the eye. Mrs. Parks smiled. Very good, Billy. Then she turned to Mary and said, As for you, young lady, I have 3 things to say. You have a dirty mind. You clearly didn't do your homework. And one day, you are going to be very, very disappointed. I stopped my car beside a prostitute last night. As she got in, I asked, How much for a job? She said, $30. I said, Can you do 20? Yeah, okay, she replied. I said, Great, here's $600 then. The boss wondered why one of his most valued employees was absent but had not phoned in sick one day. Needing to have an urgent problem with one of the main computers resolved, he dialed the employee's home phone number and was greeted with a child's whisper. Hello? Is your daddy home? He asked. Yes, whispered the small voice. May I talk with him? The child whispered, No. Surprised and wanting to talk with an adult, the boss asked, Is your mummy there? Yes. May I talk with her? Again, the small voice whispered, No. Hoping there was somebody with whom he could leave a message, the boss asked, Is anybody else there? Yes, whispered the child, a policeman. Wondering what a cop would be doing at his employee's home, the boss asked, May I speak with the policeman? No, he's busy, whispered the child. Busy doing what? Talking to Daddy and Mummy and the fireman, came the whispered answer. Growing more worried as he heard a loud noise in the background through the earpiece on the phone, the boss asked, What is that noise? A helicopter, answered the whispering voice. What is going on there? Demanded the boss, now truly apprehensive. Again, whispering, the child answered, The search team just landed a helicopter. Alarmed, concerned, and a little frustrated, the boss asked, What are they searching for? Still whispering, the young voice replied with a muffled giggle, Me. A girl potato and boy potato had eyes for each other, and finally they got married and had a little sweet potato, which they called Yam. Of course, they wanted the best for Yam, and when it was time, they told her about the facts of life. They warned her about going out and getting half-baked so she wouldn't get accidentally mashed and get a bad name for herself like hot potato and end up with a bunch of tater tots. Yam said not to worry. No spud would get her into the sack and make a rotten potato out of her. But on the other hand, she wouldn't stay home and become a couch potato either. She would get plenty of exercise so as not to be skinny like her shoestring cousins. When she went off to Europe, Mr. and Mrs. Potato told Yam to watch out for the hard-boiled guys from Ireland and the greasy guys from France called the French fries. Yam said she would stay on the straight and narrow and wouldn't associate with those high-class Yukon Golds, or the ones from the other side of the tracks who advertise their trade on all the trucks that say, Frito-Lay, Mr. and Mrs. Potato sent Yam to Idaho PU, that's Potato University, so that when she graduated, she'd really be in the chips. But in spite of all they did for her, one day Yam came home and announced she was going to marry Bob. Tom Brokaw, Mr. and Mrs. Potato were very upset. They told Yam she couldn't possibly marry Bob because he's just, are you ready for this? Are you sure? Okay, here it is. A commentator. An old man walks into a coffee shop. He approaches the counter and notices a young teen playing on his phone. Without looking, the teen says, How can I help you? Old man, I'll take a small coffee, please. Teen, without looking, That'll be 75 cents, please. The old man, annoyed at the teen, digs into his pocket and retrieves 3 quarters, which he flicks all 3 at the teen, which obviously gets his attention. The teen now has to pick up the quarters, which are scattered as the old man leaves with his coffee. The next day, the teen notices the man and decides to ignore him again, just to realize that the old man isn't having it and throws 3 more quarters at the teen. This continues for a few days until the old man returns for his regular cup of coffee. Teen, paying full attention, replies, 75 cents, please. The old man digs into his pocket only to find that he has just 2 quarters. The old man pulls his wallet out and hands the teen $1. The teen, smelling the sweet smell of opportunity, decides it's payback. The teen brings out 5 nickels out of the registers and proceeds to throw the nickels all over the stores as he counts. 5 inches, 10 inches, 15 inches, 20 inches. 25 inches is your change, sir. Have a good day. The old man then digs into his pocket, finds the 2 quarters, and as he throws them behind the counter, says, 50, 75. Another small coffee, please. An older couple had a son who was still living with them. The parents were a little worried as the son was still unable to decide about his career path, so they decided to do a small test. They took a $10 bill, a Bible, and a bottle of whiskey, and put them on the front hall table. Then they hid, hoping he would think they weren't at home. The father told the mother, "If he takes the money, he will be a businessman. If he takes the Bible, he will be a priest. But if he takes the bottle of whiskey, I'm afraid our son will be a drunkard." So the parents took their place in the nearby closet and waited nervously. Peeping through the keyhole, they saw their son arrive home. He saw the note they had left saying they'd be home later. Then he took the $10 bill, looked at it against the light, and slid it in his pocket. After that, he took the Bible, flicked through it, and took it also. Finally, he grabbed the bottle, opened it, and took an appreciative whiff to be assured of the quality. Then he left for his room, carrying all 3 items. The father slapped his forehead and said, "Damn, it's even worse than I ever imagined." "What do you mean?" his wife inquired. "He is going to be a politician." George, an 83-year-old man, was heading to bed when his wife pointed out that the light in the garage was still on. From the bedroom window, she noticed movement inside. Curious, George opened the back door to check, only to spot people rummaging through his garage, clearly up to no good. He quickly called the police and explained the situation. The officer on the line asked, "Is your garage attached to your house?" George replied, "No, it's detached." The officer then said, "All units are currently busy. Please stay inside and lock your doors, and we'll send someone as soon as possible." George hung up, paused for a moment, and then picked up the phone again. This time he told the dispatcher, "I just called about the people in my garage. You don't need to hurry anymore. I've taken care of it. I've shot them all." Then he hung up. Within minutes, George's quiet neighborhood turned into a scene out of an action movie. 6 police cars, a SWAT team, a helicopter, and an ambulance all arrived in record time. The officers swarmed the property and quickly apprehended the burglars, catching them red-handed in the act. One of the officers approached George, clearly puzzled. "I thought you said you'd shot them." With a sly smile, George replied, "And I thought you said no one was available." The young eaglets were preparing to leave the nest and soar into the world when their grandfather stopped by. He perched on the edge of the nest, proud and majestic, to offer them wisdom and well wishes. Curious about the world beyond, one eaglet asked, "Grandfather, what's your favorite thing to eat?" The old eagle thought for a moment. "That'd have to be salmon or maybe trout. Oh, one day soon you'll find out." A granddaughter tilted her head. "What do you usually eat?" "Rabbits are always a good catch, and squirrels, you've seen those, right?" "Sure. We see them running around the branches all the time," she chirped excitedly. "Well, keep an eye out. Those are tasty." "An eagle eye," a cheeky grandson quipped. He was immediately smacked. "What about birds?" The granddaughter continued. "Do we eat those?" "Some, yes." The grandfather nodded. "Seagulls, for example. Easy to catch, decent meal." Another grandson spoke up. "There's a big white bird with long legs that lives by rivers and streams. Do you eat those?" The wise old eagle nodded. "Ah, you mean egrets?" "Yes. Have you eaten many of those?" The old eagle stared off into the distance, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "Egrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention." A biker was on a long ride through a sparsely populated country. After hours of riding without seeing a soul, his bike suddenly broke down. He pushed it for a few hours and eventually spotted a single farmhouse in the distance. He knocked on the door, and the farmer greeted him warmly. "Welcome, dear visitor." The biker explained his situation, and the farmer assured him that there was no problem. He would fix the bike the next day. For now, the biker was invited to stay the night, have a meal, and sleep in a bed. The biker, grateful for the kind offer, accepted. As they sat down to eat, the farmer told him there was just one rule in the house. During dinner, there must be absolute silence. The biker thought it was a bit strange, but it wasn't his house, so he didn't mind. During dinner, the biker couldn't help but notice that the farmer's daughter was a beautiful young woman. He was tempted, and with the farmer unable to speak, he quickly made his move. He laid the daughter on the table, lifted her skirt, and had his way with her. The farmer, furious, bent his fork in half but didn't say a word. Afterward, the biker saw the farmer's wife, and although she was no longer young, she was still an attractive woman. He did the same to her, laying her on the table, lifting her skirt, and going at it. The farmer was boiling with rage, crushing his knife in his hand, but still remained silent. Exhausted, the biker returned to his seat, and just as he looked out the window, he noticed it was starting to rain. He remembered his bike was outside and quickly reached into his jacket for a jar of Vaseline to protect his bike seat from the rain. Suddenly, the farmer screamed, "Fine! Fine! I'll do the bloody dishes!" Jim and Ted had both worked for 15 years at the same bra factory, checking the quality of the products. When they were both let go, they headed down to the local employment office to sign up for unemployment benefits. They each filled out some forms and met with a jobs counselor, hoping to find new opportunities. Afterward, they each met individually with a benefits counselor to sort out their unemployment stipend. Back in the lobby, Jim asked Ted how much he'd be getting. "I'll be getting $500 a week," Jim said, "until I find something else." Ted replied, "I'll be getting $2,000 a week." Jim, puzzled and a little upset, asked, "How is that possible? We both worked the same job for 15 years, doing the same thing." Determined to get to the bottom of it, Jim went back to the benefits counselor. He asked, "Why the huge difference in our unemployment?" The counselor explained, "Well, Ted had a very technical and in-demand job that requires specific skills, so his unemployment is much higher than yours." Jim, still confused, said, "We were both working side by side in the same factory. How could our jobs be so different?" The counselor glanced at the forms and replied, "Well, according to Ted's, he listed his former position as diesel fitter. That's a highly technical job that involves working with fuel systems on an industrial scale. It requires a lot of training and is in high demand." Jim sat back, taking in the information. "Okay, but that's where the confusion comes in. Every time a brassiere came down the line, Ted would hold it up to his chest and say, 'Diesel fitter.'" A first-grade teacher, Miss Brooks, was having trouble with one of her students. The teacher asked, "Harry, what's your problem?" Harry answered, "I'm too smart for the first grade. My sister is in the third grade, and I'm smarter than she is. I think I should be in the third grade, too." Miss Brooks had had enough. She took Harry to the principal's office. While Harry waited in the outer office, the teacher explained to the principal what the situation was. The principal told Miss Brooks he would give the boy a test. If he failed to answer any of his questions, he was to go back to the first grade and behave. She agreed. Harry was brought in, and the conditions were explained to him, and he agreed to take the test. Principal: "What is 3x3? Harry: 9. Principal: "What is 6x6? Harry: 36. And so it went with every question the principal thought a third grader should know. The principal looks at Miss Brooks and tells her, "I think Harry can go to the third grade." Miss Brooks says to the principal, "Let me ask him some questions." The principal and Harry both agreed. Miss Brooks asks, "What does a cow have 4 of that I have only 2 of?" Harry, after a moment, "Legs." Miss Brooks: "What is in your pants that you have but I do not have?" The principal wondered why she would ask such a question. Harry replied, "Pockets." Miss Brooks: "What does a dog do that a man steps into?" Harry: "Pants." The principal sat forward with his mouth hanging open. Miss Brooks: "What goes in hard and pink then comes out soft and sticky?" The principal's eyes opened really wide, and before he could stop the answer, Harry replied, "Bubble gum." Miss Brooks: "What does a man do standing up, a woman does sitting down, and a dog does on 3 legs?" Harry: "Shake hands." The principal was trembling. Miss Brooks: "What word starts with an F and ends in K that means a lot of heat and excitement?" Harry: "Fire truck." The principal breathed a sigh of relief and told the teacher, "Put Harry in the 5th grade. I got the last 7 questions wrong."